Let's see what happens. I'm in a strange and unusual land right now. Is there anybody there? We are at 4 o'clock. I don't see anybody else popping up on the screen. There's nobody in here. There's a like, but there's no people. So somebody liked it, but it shows there's no people. I can't see any comments. I can't see anything running across my little screen. There it is. Garage tour? No, I got on to get ready to go live, and it said something about I needed to put in my stream code. And so I reset and said, okay, well, maybe, I don't know, I haven't changed anything. Everything's been fine on the computer. So I went to redo it and reopen it, and after 3 tries, I realized there's something happened to whatever Trevor had preset for the streaming code to run this. Not on my phone, but on the computer. And I couldn't figure it out. Trevor's not here, so I just decided, well, I'll go out front and I'll see if I can get it to work on my phone, which I did. So, fortunately, my phone's charged, and I was able to do this. So, yes, it is the garage behind me, which is a mess. So, and obviously, there are Christmas lights, so you know I'm live, right? You know, at least it's December. And, of course, what makes this totally unique and wonderful for me is I can sit here for the next hour and I can smoke. So I could actually have a cigarette, not being cooped up. There we go. But it does work. So I don't know what that streaming code is about. So we will deal with this today. It's a bit different doing like this because I have to have the phone differently. So not always a fan of it. People seem to like this. I'm not sure if I do. Could have went and sat in the truck, but it's noisier in there. Anyways, since we're getting started, and we are live, Jason Fritz, you remember him from The Rendezvous, will be down at the Superstition Mountain Museum tomorrow, Saturday, the 13th, from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., along with 2 other authors. Another author writes Arizona type, I believe, nonfiction books, Ron McCoy. And I don't know anything about the other individual, Carolyn Kearney, but they will be joining Jason. The museum had it posted nowhere. I didn't see where the museum was hosting this event, authors or anything like that. So I would take it they're usually outside when they do this, on the patio area, but I don't know about their planning. But that is, Jason asked me if I would put this out here, so I'm going to. So between 9 and 4 tomorrow, I've thought about going down. A couple other pieces of business I have to do with the museum, so I might go down and say hi to Jason. I already have a couple copies of his book, so I don't need that, but just to say hi to him, see how things are going. So if you want a copy of Jason's book, you don't have it yet, or you just want to say hi to Jason, you can do so. And if you're lucky and you're there at the right time, you can say hi to me, possibly even to Trevor. And who knows who else might show up down there. But also additionally, put in your little notes, and I can't read you guys as much. I say howdy, and I can't. It's very, very small font down here. Good to Jason, Ola, Wayne, and all. Hey, Dallas. I can catch it occasionally. Mark Medley is releasing a book. It'll be January 6, 2026. So this coming January 6th, called Live to See the Day. It's about people with impossible dreams, impossible tasks, possible things they want to do that people think they're nutty for doing. And there'll be a chapter on the Lost Dutchman. I'll be included in that. He interviewed a number of different Dutch hunters and people. So that hardcover book's $26. It'll be available January 6, 2026. It'll be available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart. Mark is out of Toronto, Canada. So talked to him a couple of years ago, and very nice guy. And I figured I'd plug his book. So let's plug Sunsets too, which is also available on Amazon, or you can watch it on Amazon Prime. So motorized vehicles are pulling up as I speak, but there are no jets, so we're getting total quiet. So So Mark Medley's book coming up January 6th. You can pre-order it now. And Jason will be down at the museum tomorrow. So that being said and done, here we are. And we are live. You can't see it. I won't put it up. It is clear. Very few clouds. Blue sky. Actually quite nice. I think it got up into the high 70s today. So there we go. What else is in the news? It's kind of the end of the year. I think the museum has something going on. I don't know what else, but it's some sort of event. But most everything in the museums and everything else kick off probably around January, sometime in January, and the lecture series will start. I wrap up the lecture series as that we get closer to that, which I don't remember when it is. It's February or March, but I'm the last of the lectures in the lecture series. I so choose to appear. So that'll be the third or fourth lecture I've done at the museum. So there is that. All right, so that's kind of, it's dark already in Tennessee. You know why it's still sunny in here? Because I hold the sun up. I ask it to pause. But, so I don't know if anybody's questioning, we are live on the hood of the truck because for some reason it was asking for a streaming code, and I don't even know where that would be or what it was. I thought it was something saved in the system, so Trevor will come home and we'll have to manipulate and play with that this weekend. He's been sick all week. He has the flu, so we've been he set some stuff up for some of this day in the superstitions and stuff, and I went in and just talked to the camera. Then he comes in, gets the camera, and he edits, but haven't seen him much. He hasn't been looking very good, so hopefully he feels better. He might be pulling in here soon, so... But, yeah, he's been sick. Flu's going around. Everybody's had a touch of the flu, except for me. I don't get sick. It's Dr. Pepper, chocolate chip cookies, and cigarettes. And seems to keep me healthy. Oh, hello, Nashville. We got someone from Nashville, Tennessee. Yeah, that's where he said it was dark. It's dark already. And then I'm saying, watched you... Man... I got the wrong color shirt on. See, if I would have wore a black shirt, I could have seen this much better, but everything's blending in with my shirt. Watch your Clues video again. Thank you, Herman Petrash. It could be the generation of the LDM. Howdy, Wayne. Howdy. And did he get a flu shot? Yeah, of course. That's why everybody has the flu. He got COVID because he got a COVID shot. He got the flu because he gets a flu shot. I don't get flu shots. I don't get COVID shots. I don't do any of that stuff. And that's one of the reasons I stay healthy. Have you ever been in the Chuck Kenworthy site? Yeah, I've been up in, depends which site, but if you talk to Quo Vadis and the old Charlie Boy Mountain, Black Mountain area, yes, I've been up in there. I think I told the story once of being up there. That's where I got shot at one time and stuck up on the rocks, was up in that area. I think that we did a video on that. So that was a scary incident, but I never met Chuck or Tiger, any of them that I know of. So again, there's a chance you could have met someone and not realized who they were. I always look at things like Crazy Jake. I think I would have recognized and remembered him because I've seen the pictures and stuff. Bob Ward. Some people stood out very, very much. You might have seen them in passing, but I think a few of them just stand out so badly. And I do remember meeting Tom Collenborn, Greg Davis, and Bob Corbin. So I do remember meeting a few people, but you know, some people I don't remember at all, and it's just probably I didn't run across paths with them. But I ran across paths with Ron Feldman a bit, but he wouldn't have remembered me. And it's many, many years ago. Is it the Palmer Mine that's at the base of the West End? It is. The Palmer Mine is at the base of the West End, the Northwest End. Yes. The Palmer Mines. If you go out towards, I think there's a trail that goes out through there. Is it from Lost Dutchman State Park? Has a trail that goes out that way. Also, The trail that goes Massacre Grounds, there used to be a trail out there that led to it. I think there's just a little bit of the foundation or something. I'm bleeding all over the truck. Don't know what I did. But you can take one of those trails and go out there near the foundation and where it was. So should be listed on almost any topo map. Your hidden talent. My hidden talent, is that a question? My hidden talent is to bleed. That is, I do that occasionally. My hidden talent, I don't know what my hidden talent is. It's becoming very annoying because I am also noticing that all my security cameras continue to go off, and since I don't want to interrupt the stream, it's going to continue to drive everyone in the house crazy because constantly the security cameras are picking me up. So everyone in the house is going to be looking to see what's going on, and it's me just standing out here talking to myself, basically. Okay, we got through those. Yeah, I wish I would have known I was doing this and I wore a black shirt. I could see this stuff really well. You think? Okay. I don't know. I think it's a question. It's just really hard to pick out the words as my shirt. It's going in with the color, and I don't want to mess with anything because I'll lose the feed. So it's always that's one of the problems with doing it this way. Even though I seem to be able to read it as well, but yeah, it's just wrong color shirt on this. So anyways, as I mentioned earlier, Jason Fritz will be down at the Superstition Mountain Museum tomorrow from 9 to 4, signing books and stuff with a couple other authors. There might be others, I don't know. And then Mark Medley's book, Live to See the Day, will be out January 6, 2026. And it's about living impossible goals, doing impossible things, tasks, so forth. And and then he called me up and let me know that the book is being published and on pre-order through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart, and all these other vendors. And he's very happy. He's a reporter in Toronto, Canada. And like I said before, 2 years ago, he interviewed me about the Lost Dutchman mine. He was looking for information and stuff and wanted to include a chapter of it about it. So I'm sure there's stuff maybe like Oak Island stuff. I don't know. He said there's a chapter on Lost Dutchman, so I don't know how much treasure stories he will have around that. But I don't think it's an impossible task. Maybe futile, but not impossible. Greetings from Gil Gold Prospecting, San Antonio, Texas, where every day is a golden day. Happy holidays. There we go. Are you going to do a two-session? A two-session on finding the Lost Dutchman mine. What's that mean? Man, Hewitt Canyon Road is pretty washed up. It's always been washed up. Hewitt has its moments. Depends on the ranchers. If the ranchers are back in Hewitt and having to do a lot of work and move cattle, and they're pretty active through there, the road will be in decent shape with all the rains that we had and everything. And then it depends. I mean, it doesn't help that there are people that in their side-by-sides and ATVs and four-wheel drives that go out when it's in rough shape and then just further tear it up. So I don't know. I haven't been down there for a little bit. I usually work that way more in January, February. Start making my trips that way. I start usually coming in from the south and the western end, and then I just kind of work my way around. I haven't been to Pinto Creek in a while. That's an area I really like. I don't know what the two-session thing really was. There was 2 lights up the Superstitions. It wasn't okay, but people, that was a thing too. We would sit at Clay's. Not I sat at Clay's all the time, but you'd sit at Clay's in the evening, and people would be going up, and when the night started to come, you could see the flashlights of people up on the mountain. Clay had a great view of the mountain, definitely the Flatiron in those areas, but you could see the flashlights bobbing and moving and stuff. And people, of course, nowadays, it's not these very faint, they're very bright, very strong flashlights, and you can see them bobbing and weaving and moving all over the mountains. So you can see lights all over the mountains constantly. in those areas and other spots. So I don't know if that's what you're referring to. I don't know, like I said. Old Jack Tucker has a couple of books out also. I've never seen Jack's books. He never talks about them that I know of, but I don't know what his books are about. So, no idea. So, old Jack Tucker. But, yeah, I don't know. I know Jack does his RV park and stuff. He does that kind of stuff, but I didn't know the books. Yeah, most books anymore, Mark Medley's is worth really noting too, because it's a little bit different. It's also by a much larger publisher. It's not a vanity project, so it'll be interesting. I'll keep an eye on it, not because I'm in it, but just to see how well it does, that it's in the hands of a better publisher, probably better circulation. But good for Mark, good for Jack, good for Jason, and Ron McCoy and Carolyn Curdy, who I don't know who they are. But that's surprising, because usually they have the author's day at the museum and they list, they have 7, 8, 10 people, and they have quite a presentation, and the author signing books and do a lot. And Jason just told me it was him, Ron, and Carolyn tomorrow from 9 to 4, and I could not find anything about it other than he told me. So unless they misinformed Jason, I'm taking it they're going to be out there. But I did not find it. I am a member of the Historical Society in the museum, and I didn't see anything about it. There was something about some other little party thing. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, nothing about them being out. So I don't know. You next, Wayne. You next, Wayne. Oh, you're talking books? When I can never figure out how to tell the story the right way, properly with documentation, not make it an opinion piece. I don't think I can give my opinion here. I don't. Okay, I didn't know I got a mention. So I get mentioned in a lot of books. I've found that out several times, that I'll pick up something and then find my name in it. And if everybody spells my name, I'm fine. But to me, it's always about, how do I want to approach it? I have several ideas and articles I've written and stuff, but I've always kind of been hesitant, because I don't want it to be, oh, I sold 200 copies. I don't want it to be, I want it to be something that everybody's like, oh, I got this. This was very useful. This was, this was good. This was informative. I learned something from this. I don't want it to be my opinion or about my relationship with the mountain necessarily. I want it to be something that kind of holds itself together. And there's not a lot of those books, because we've talked about that before. A lot of books are opinion pieces and they're vanity projects. And when you see the difference between a lot of people that sell books and then some people that sell tens of thousands of books, and the best way to tell that is if you go to a used bookstore like a Goodman's, Bookman's, one of these places where, is it Goodreads? Maybe it's Goodreads. But if you go in and you walk in and you see it on the shelf, pick up a copy, there's been enough circulation that it's been traded in, or someone's picked up and there's used editions out. If you don't run into them, it's rare. So I used to run into Helen Corbin's Curse of the Dutchman, Tom Cullenborn's Ride Through Time, and I will run into Jack Carlson's Hiking Guide. Also, what's the other one? The guy who worked for Celeste Jones. I'm not remembering his name now, but anyways, his book you can find quite frequently. So that means they published enough, and there's enough copies out there that they turn up in the used aisles. If they're not showing up in the used, it means they weren't selling many. And I don't have the need to have something on my bookshelf just to say I wrote it and then sell 100 copies. I'd also like to do it and find a way to make it very affordable. I don't think, to me, it should be about volume. If you're writing something that you really want people to read, that you think might help people, you want to circulate it. So it's a number of different things, and I think I've talked about that before. So I'll have to look for one of Jack's books. I'm sure you have to order it online. which I'll have to remember to search for it on website or something. It was scheduled for a couple weeks ago. Christmas Boutique, that was the thing I saw, the only thing, yeah. Hey, Spokane, Washington. Sikorsky, yeah, Sikorsky's Fool's Gold, and then there's another version, but there's two versions of that. That was one of the other ones I used to see actually quite a bit on the shelves. You can always pick up, and it's usually the later edition that's in red with the Dutchman kind of picture on it, not the Fool's Gold yellow one, but he sold a lot of those. Yeah, that's the ones, and Carlson told me, he and Elizabeth Stewart have sold a good number of books, but that's part of it too. I don't want to do it just be like, hey, I had 100 print a day and I sold 50, and there's 50 in my garage. I will be acquiring a number of other books, and it just show you that people, because the price comes down, that they acquire at a certain rate. And I think I'm going to have 200 or 300 of Thomas Glover's second book, third book technically, but the Twice Told Tales book, because they were on a pallet and nobody wants to sell them, and Thomas isn't. He's in a care center, and Thomas is unavailable, and he's not pushing them. I think there's another pallet of even more books that the state has, because they have his estate. They're in care of him, and yeah, it's like, what do you do with them? So, I mean, you got to get out, you got to push it. They have ISBN codes, but you got to get them on Amazon. You got to find some way to get people going. If there's no TV shows, there's nothing really happening. YouTube doesn't push that stuff. Unfortunately, YouTube is very, very as much as, and I just ran into someone at work downtown off of, I think I was down around 7th Street, and I can't remember where I was. Might have been Buckeye. I don't know. But anyways, I was downtown and ran into a guy who was like, hey, what's your name? And I turned around and I was like, oh shit, what did I do? Because I was thinking, man, his dog was barking at me and stuff, but I didn't even say anything. And I'm thinking, man, because you don't want to screw up at work. And he goes, yeah, I watch your YouTube. Yeah, you're Wayne Tuttle and I'm not. It's like, okay, that's fine. It's always weird to be recognized at work, because I just don't think people will recognize me. And I get recognized at work quite a bit. So I know your book would sell. Yeah, but it's, let's face it, it's a niche area. And so you're going to have so many people. So it depends what's going on. I mean, you want it to disperse, and then you got to pay for it. I don't know. It's just, to me, it's always that thing of spending money that, is it about ego and vanity? And if it's his, I'm not really interested. So I guess, I don't want to leave my kids like 200 copies of a book. Here, guys, It probably will eventually come when I have the time and I just decide to sit down and do some of it. I think about things, but it's hard to commit. I used to like writing a lot, and I don't like to sit down and just painstakingly do it. But there's enough written down in pieces, and I had an idea for another one, but it's just pulling it together, and then you got to read it, and then you got to put the index, and you got to do all that stuff. Okay, Mount Hermon's Suspicious Looking Area by Bull Pass. Now it's moving, so it's harder with my shirt. Hooly Bacon, Cinnamon, good to see the real Wayne Tuttle, King Tut. Okay. My dad was always called King Tut. I never got that. I don't think I ever got that my whole life. I found a few cool books from the Dons. Greg is the author. That would be newspaper articles. There's a Dawn in Washington. I know Greg edited and put that together. Then you had Orrin Arnold stuff. I don't know what Greg also put up. It's weird. The Dons were very proactive about pamphlets, booklets, and material, and then the Dons just quit doing that. Sometime in the 70s and 80s, it just kind of faded out. So I don't know why. But Greg's the author I know of this. Well, he's kind of editor of the newspaper articles, the Superstitions, and then a Dawn in Washington, which was it Fred Guyry? Was that Fred? I don't remember who it is. Anyway, that we were talking about that not too long ago. Let's see, what? God, this shirt is killing me. What's the deal with the mission near Bob Ward's? What mission? It was, Tom told me it was a sheep herder's cabin at one time, and then Chuck Crawford brought the bulldozer in and tore it all up and ruined it for everybody. I always heard from Tom and other people it was not a mission. It was just someone's cabin, and then they got a wild hair and just decided that it was a mission, and then that became a thing. That was propagated by Bob Ward. I know Rick Gwynn was big into that. Emory Taylor. I know Alan Tree believed in that. Chuck Crawford. A bunch of them. But Tom said no. And he knew he didn't know the family's name, but he knew there was a family that lived there. And I'm pretty sure he said they were sheep herders, which was odd for that area. But there's a lot of people that squatted there. Bob Ward lived on several places along Peralta Road up to the Peralta Trailhead over time, and the place he was at before he died was one of the last places he lived at. So I was trying to remember the other individual's name there, but by the staircase mine, not the spiral staircase, but the staircase mine. And yeah, so that wasn't, we went out there, and I went out there with Rick Gwynn and someone else, and they both sat there and gave me this long lecture about it. But then someone went out and talked about it, and they had known Tom, and they talked about how Chuck Crawford went in there with a bulldozer, and they thought there was they think there's a treasure under everything, so they bulldozed it up and just destroyed it. I was out there a bunch of different times. I think we have film. I think I got a bunch of footage of that, because I think I went out there one time with Rick Gwynn and Paul Shimmick and Trevor, and God, trying to think of who else. There was a bunch of us went out there one time, and Rick was talking about it and talking about the different times, what Chuck did to it and all that. So there we go. Love your channel. There you go. I'm moving so I can read you guys all the time. Quick question: is the Spanish treasure signs that are on BLM land allowed to dig with permits? And it depends. You have to look at the applicable laws. Unless you can dig it, nobody knows you're digging, and you dig it up and get it. So that's important. Doesn't mean you can't dig, but BLM land you can file mining claims and do all that, and do all that. State trust land, I think you can as well. You just got to go through your proper channels and set your claim markers and do everything, and then dig to your heart's delight and pay your assessment fee, maintenance fees, and whatnot. But that's, and the same on the National Forest. And it depends how you file. You can just file with the county. I think on most of them you could just file with the county, as long as you meet all the other things. Now, I think the National Forest, if it's Tonto, they really rather you file, like, say, with Pinal County and Tonto to make sure you're filed. But that, remember we talked in one time, one of the problems with Waltz was probably he lost his claims. Probably the gross load was a mess because of this. There was multiple books. Well, today we have the same problem. People do it through BLM, and then they'll file, and then someone else might file through the county, and then they'll just have to look for who had the best first filing fee. And so it can be a bit of a mess of everybody filing, crisscrossing and crossing over and stuff. And that's where some of those feuds come. And oddly enough, anymore, nobody ever seems to find anything on any of those. Okay. I have to like that, because I think the blink is turned off because it appears. Okay. So you can dig on BLM. Any new findings on the superstitions as of today? Nothing I know, but I haven't been looking today. I think I saw that my security cameras are still all running. I looked for that mission, couldn't find anything. Yeah, sure, the stuff's still there. It's hard to tell. It just is a big square, kind of. It's a big rectangle, and you can tell someone was in the middle of it with a tractor. It's right beside the road that runs the fence line. So if you're on that road that runs the fence line, east and west, it's right to your north. So it's on the north side of the fence line, and it's on the north side of the road. And you should be able to see it because it's kind of an open area. You can tell someone was out there dozing it and stuff. And that's on state trust. So it's not part of the BLM package for the park. So I don't think it was part of the trade. So it should be part of the original fence line. So if you ride that fence line, I know you kind of go up and it rides the top for a little bit before it starts to drop back down. So it should be right there at the top. It's a good place with a view and stuff. But yeah, it's right there. I'll have to show you next time we run into each other. Maybe we'll run out there and I'll show you that. Yeah, they made it tougher now. You got to walk out to it. You used to be able to drive right by, but it's right there beside the road. I mean, you park on the road and get out, and it's right there. And Frank and I went out with Tom, and Tom showed where the well or something had been, and a couple other things that they'd had, other buildings. So Tom knew a lot about it. And he poo-pooed the whole thing of them digging it up. He said they ruined it. Would have been interesting, been nice to preserve it out there. But yeah, there was a lot of people that squatted and homesteaded out along there until they started cleaning them out, because Doc Nations had a place out there. If you go out, there's several other times on the roads, Frank even mistook this other place for Burns Ranch that's west of it, where there's a well and foundation stuff. And I told him, no, that was someone else. So there was a number of different people that had and lived out there for many, many years. Okay. Any new findings? Oh, we did that. I looked for that mission. Okay, we got there. There was supposed to be a cactus marker nearby. There's a cactus marker right down where the fence used to have the gate that went down to Bob Ward's. So if you went there and you were heading east on the road, and the mission was to your left, and then it had a rise, you'd get up on it and you'd go flat, and then it'd start to dip down. And just before it started to dip down and go down the hill towards Burns Ranch, there was a gate. I think it was the Quarter Circle U. Might have been the Donnellys, but anyways, it said, please, the gate, close the gate and make sure the gate's secure. And when you went through that gate, right there on your left, there was a large saguaro cactus, and there was a palo verde tree. I think it's a palo verde. It's still there, but anyways, that cactus is right there, and that cactus is the one that had, I think, the cross in it and stuff, and a bunch of markings on it, and I think there was some on the tree. But that used to be the gate where Rick would wait and take guns from people coming down, because they'd go in that gate, and then they'd go down the hill and around the corner to Bob Ward's place for the parties and whatever gatherings. And Rick would collect guns from people that they didn't know, because they didn't want everybody to have a gun. See, it was easier for Bob Ward to shoot people if no one else had guns. Hey, think about it. Well, it's not bad thinking. So there you go. So there we are. Oh, why me? Having a cold one in the house of you, brother. Okay, well, you're not having a cold one in my house. If you're having a cold one, well, you can be drinking Trevor's beer. I got to leave. Thanks, Wayne. No problem for mentioning the Christmas boutique. Yeah, okay. I didn't remember the date. I didn't even remember the name of it. I just remember there was another event, and they've done a bad job of publicizing stuff. It's just been real shaky this last 6 months or so. And I don't know how the turnouts have been. I haven't been down there to look at any of the I hate the event stuff sometimes, so every time I've been down, there's nobody there. So, and I know most of the people I would visit are no longer working there. So Jack Olson's not down there anymore, and Teton Ken. And without those guys, you know, and other people to sit around and talk to, there's really nobody, you know. It used to be a place where you had your museum guys. They weren't always Dutch hunters, but they were the museum guys, and you could go down and hang out and talk with them. And now that they're not even there, all right, so yeah, Christmas Boutique is coming up as well. Mountain Man Rendezvous, that was Bob Ward. Thanks for everything you do. No problem. But Bob Ward did the Mountain Man Rendezvous. That was his thing, and he started that. Had his scroll. Tom had that scroll where he wrote all these names on it and stuff, but he had the scroll and a bunch of stuff, and he did the Mountain Man Rendezvous at one of his camps, one of his base camps or party areas. And I've seen a bunch of pictures of that. Tom's in a couple of them. Sal's in them. Rick. There's a bunch of people. Tree, I think's in one of them. But they would do the Mountain Man Rendezvous. There'd be at least 15 to 20 people show up for those. And that pretty much died out when Bob died. And then, so the rendezvous has nothing to do with that. That was purely another complete different thing that got confused. Someone basically on another YouTube was talking about it, and people confused that they're somehow similar or attached in any way, and it wasn't. Dutch Hunter Rendezvous was Ron Feldman's site, and Ron Feldman and Joe Roboto and people like that wanted to do a get-together, and when we did the first one, we thought we should call it something, and there was a bunch of dumb names came out, and the only one that wasn't really stupid was Dutch Hunter Rendezvous, and that's how it ended up its name. And I'm sure it was someone thought, well, you know, Bob Ward did the mountain. So when Sal started the Treasure Hunter of the Year Awards, that was kind of a entirely different thing as well, even though he knew Bob. It wasn't the Mountain Man thing that it kind of got more listed as. It was kind of, that was when Rick did the next 12 years, he more incorporated that in. Sal incorporated the Ides of March date and the Venice Vidi Vici thing and a bunch to it, and then Rick kind of incorporated his own stamps on it, and then Bob and I have pretty much left it alone. We didn't do much else to change anything to do with it, because we didn't want to mess with it. It was complex. It's almost impossible to explain it, but all those things have nothing to do with the other, even though there is no constant. I mean, guess Sal was at the Mountain Man Rendezvous and then started the plaques and the basically Hall of Fame, but there's not many ties to any of that. They're all, like I said, separate things. And the person that really confused a lot of it was because they never invited to any of it. So they just were like, hey, guess he felt left out. Is there truth to the story the two Indians checked into a hotel, bought some ropes, went to the mountains, and come back? I don't know if there's any truth to it, because there's 101 stories like that. That's a problem with that. You would hear those, and you could collect them, and you could look at them. And there's also the one of the Mexicans from Mexico come up and go to the end of Bluff Springs and do that story. At least that had some, Bill Barkley talked about it, and Brownie Holmes saw them and told people about them. But yeah, that's kind of one of the problems, is sometimes those stories is like they came into a motel or a hotel in town, and then that just goes out. It was kind of like some of the stuff with Killing Mountains was completely not even embellished. It was just made up to help create a good story. Some of those things didn't happen, or like the helicopter being tied down was more an accidental thing than somebody did something on purpose, you know. You guys got a great culture up there. Well, thank you. Sal is probably the only person Bob Ward didn't try to. No, he tried to kill. Sal tells that story all the time. Bob had him come down to the cabin one day, and he had two chairs. Bob was sitting in one, and there was another one facing his chair, straight across from it. And Sal came in and realized Bob wants him to sit there. So Sal sat, and he said then Bob pulled his firearm up, his revolver up, pointed it right at Sal's chest. He told Sal, "I'm going to kill you." And Sal said he figured he was done for. A drink, as you can hear. Sal tells it better and Bob proceeded to tell Sal he talked too much. He knew too much. Sal said he didn't know what Bob was talking about, didn't know what he knew. It's just pretty typical Sal. And Sal realized he wasn't going to be able to talk Bob out of it because he knew Bob well enough to see the look in his eyes. And he figured he was dead to rights. And he figured, Sal said a lot of what Bob said he didn't listen to because he was just thinking, this is, shit, I'm going to die. I've had a good life. And, he's just waiting for the bullet. And Bob's doing his villain speech. And then Bob said, I'm going to spare you today. There's something with you. There's something there. Your guardian angel is watching over you. And I don't know what this is, but I guess I will spare you and you can live another day. And let Sal go. And they remained friends to show you Sal's forgiving. But Sal said he had no idea what it was. It was just Bob told him he knew too much and he talked too much. And Sal must have said the wrong thing about something to someone unknowingly. And Sal still didn't know what really, what caused it. But he said, yes, Bob had all intentions of killing him and putting him to rest. And that happened with all of them. And then later, Sal wanted to kill Rick, and they all wanted to kill each other at one time or another. So don't always act like, they weren't gunning for each other, because they would get upset over the weirdest things. And then you'd be like, why are you trying to kill Rick? And he'd be like, oh, he made me mad. Well, no, you can't just go kill your friend because he made you mad this week. So, and then they got over it. But yeah, I have no idea. Sal doesn't know this. I can tell that story. He believes he was done for. Bob really wanted to just explain it. You're my friend, I'll explain it to you, and then I'm gonna kill you. And for some reason, somehow, something Bob in his drunken haze or whatever felt that deserved to live another day, and he decided to let him go. Well, he scared Sal. He didn't scare Sal into silence, one. Secondly, Sal to this day has no idea why Bob was mad at him. So there you go. Oh, man, the time's flown by. Whenever I'm outside and do this and get to smoke and stuff, it's always kind of crazy. Gold is an American dream. Real West. Okay, do you think there is anything to Robert Sikorsky helping Murray? Well, the duffel bag did happen because Bob Ward talked about it. And he told several people, and we know the basic route he went. And he had told a number of different people about it. They buried that up. I've talked about it. I've done videos on it. It's up on, it was in Coffee Flat. They went up. Don't understand what it all was. Bob's impression was he thinks they were trying to fake him out somehow. He thought there was a good chance whatever they were doing was an elaborate hoax to test him, and he didn't know why. But there's a bunch of crows just showed up all over the place. They're not standing here looking at me, but they're all over the place right here. But he felt that was a thing of them kind of checking him out or seeing if he was worthy or something. He didn't understand why, and he said he always had the feeling that whatever he was meant to see it, he was put in a position so he would be curious and be able to see it. He didn't know if it was to spread the word about it, or it was they were testing him to see if he would talk to other people, or what the whole reason was. But yeah, but Bob always said that happened. He just wasn't sure how real it was or whatnot. And he went up and looked in the area and couldn't find anything about it. We've always looked too to see what it was, but he assured, in the book it's written more like it was something very believable. Bob personally felt there was something more to it because It was just, you know, very odd. Here, stand here at a distance and watch us bury this stuff. We trust you, you know. And he just said there really wasn't a reason for him to be there, was the other thing. So he didn't know. So there's that. So there you go. And I've went out and looked too, and we don't quite understand what the purpose, rhyme, reason was. No one's ever found anything up there. So who knows? Who knows what they were doing? Celeste Jones and them were a bit odd, you know. It was an odd group. And I think that was Jones and Louie, right? Louie was up there with her when she did that. But Bob worked for a number of different people, so he did, you know, associate and would pack some things in or do some things, work for Celeste Jones. But I think he also did things for Chuck Crawford and a number of other people. So he would, you know, he was like a gun for hire, but also like for hire for different projects and team and partner with different people. Which is why when people say, oh, do you think the DeGrazia thing, which people try to say he didn't know, I'm sure he knew Ted, and they talked, and Ted would visit him because Ted liked to visit people and liked to spend time out there. So they probably knew each other. And Bob says we didn't hunt the mine together, we didn't go in the mountains together, but that one time. So, you know, I think he had these different times he associated with someone for a specific reason, and in that case he says he doesn't know why Celeste Jones wanted him to go along. She wanted him there for him to see something, and he wasn't sure why. Sal's that way too. Sal says Bob used to take him out, and Sal would talk to me and say, I don't know why we were there, I don't know what we were doing, I don't know what Bob's intentions were, I don't know why Bob was pointing things out, and we've tried to walk him through it with different stories of Bob's to see if there's something we could tell you. But no, man, there's a lot of crows just landing around here. They're just roosting up. It's a murder of crows. Is it murder? Yeah, it's murder of crows, right? It's a conspiracy of ravens. Yeah, they're just all over the rooftops, the fences. They came in. I wonder if they were out in a field somewhere doing something and someone was plowing and roosted them up. Now it's getting in the evening and they're all starting to settle in somewhere. What happened to Celeste? Nobody knows. The two people that I know, if someone would have known, they would have known, was Tom Collenborn and Bob Corbin. And I asked, and I never got a satisfactory answer if anybody followed what she was doing. There's a couple people believe this and that. There's people that think she was attached to the religion that Julia and Albert were part of, but that was actually kind of their own creation. It was an apocalyptic Christian movement, but it wasn't a standard church. I don't think he was an ordained pastor by any means. I think it was kind of a thing, the creation of like the end times prophecies and stuff. She just kind of drifted off. She was there for before Piper, and I think she was there after Piper. And then they say she just kind of lost steam, probably not getting the help and stuff, got older, health and that. And then she just wasn't coming out. Now she would travel, she would come in and set her base camp and stuff, and I think it was just 1 year she just quit showing up. And no one's ever been able to pin down. Like I said, there's several people think they know what happened to her and she was still alive and stuff. Bob Corbin thought she was kind of nutty. Tom told me that she always said if she found the treasure, she'd put him through college, make sure he got a good education, so he'd, you know, because he knew her. He met her during the time he was out there with the Barclays and after that, so I didn't know she was out there for so long. And he said she was crazy, but she was actually quite nice to a lot of people, which is funny because Ed Piper was as well, so it's kind of odd. The two of them were so nice to so many different people, and both a little nutty, and both hated each other so much. So would have thought they would have teamed up more than what they feuded on. But yeah, most people believe she returned to California, and like I said, I've never seen anyone have anything definitive. I've heard people tell me a story, and I've tried to find what they told me, if there's anything I could verify, and I can't. So I don't know. She could have died here in Phoenix, she could have died somewhere else. Some people say she raised funds from various people she knew in Phoenix. Other people say she raised funds from the church in California. But no one has ever really been able to explain. That would be an incredible story to figure out and have documentation for, because you would think it would be, because it's more modern time story going into the 60s. But yeah, no one quite knows. And Louis would have been a good person to get a hold of. I don't know who. Most everybody that knew them is gone now, so I don't know. Like I said, Bob Corbin and Tom were probably the two best people to talk to. And I have a big collection of Ed Piper's stuff. I don't have much of Celeste Jones. I have some claim papers of Celeste Jones and a couple of things, but I got Ed Piper's stuff. Al Morrow's to the peacemaker. Tried to be the peacemaker. Well, he tried to do that with everybody. If you ever read his, he would write journals. He'd get a magazine or something, just something to write on, and he'd write in all the margins, and he would date them and stuff about what was happening in the mountains. It would be like, you know, got up for breakfast, hot cakes, you know, this morning, coffee this morning, went out, worked in the mine for a little bit, very, very meticulous about it, and then he'd say 11:10 gunshots north of Needle Canyon, da 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 da. He would talk about the gunshots and different stuff, and I think part of the reason for him and maybe a couple other people that visited those camps was, if they're just firing, you got to remember, how many times were Piper and Jones just randomly shooting at each other and noises in the canyon, and especially once the sun went down. And all these guys working back in there had to be terrified they were going to get shot, accidentally, stray bullets flying around. Because that is one of the stories, is them just taking pot shots at each other in camp, and from quite a distance. And I think Ed Piper, Al Morrow, I think, wanted them just to stop. You know, somebody's going to get hurt. And of course somebody died because of that, but and then Vance Bacon's fall and other things. But I think that was more of it, him and trying to act like peacemaker, of just but they would get along with other people. That there was no problem with that, because Bob Corbin visited both camps. Most people knew both parties and talked about them, and it's very odd that the two of them couldn't. There was total friction. And it's, you know, for whatever reason, that was not going to resolve. It resolved because Ed Piper died. That was it. Did you ever meet Tom Collenborn's father? No, Tom's dad died 60s, early 60s, before I was born, I'm pretty sure. He died, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I'm thinking it was in the 60s, early 60s. So, yeah, Tom's dad was long gone. Just trying to think of if I can remember the date, 61, 62. I know, because part of the story is Tom went to his parents' house to clean out boxes and clean out the garage. There was a bunch of stuff his mom wanted him to clean out and get rid of. And he was going through all these old boxes, and they'd gotten wet and stuff, and they were a bunch of them, you know, but his dad had journals, and then Tom, of course, quit going through the garage and started going through the journals and started finding all the stuff his dad had written on the mine. He knew his dad was in the Superstitions. His dad had taken him in there when he was younger, got him the job at the Corner U. So he had some knowledge, but he didn't know the extent of the knowledge. And other members of his family that had his Uncle Abe and other people that had been in the mountains with his dad. And which was prehistory to Tom, because they were going in the mountains in the late 20s, 30s, and the 40s. So Tom suddenly discovered how deep this was. Plus, you have to remember, even Tom's dad wrote in the journals, we're going on a fishing trip, quote, little quotes. So they would not tell the wives what they were doing. So they would say, well, we're going on a fishing trip, and then they would go up and explore the Superstitions for a week, and then they'd come home, and yeah, okay, and they'd buy some fish on the way home and pretend they went fishing. And they did that quite a bit. So, but I think the wives knew a little bit, because Tom was friends with Herman and all these different people. Okay. You had a gentleman on your podcast who saw a dark figure with a black fire coming off their arms. That was Sal. It was the creepiest, the stick man. There's a video on it. Stick man, he wasn't creepy at the time. That'd be the weirdest thing. Everything weird that I think I'm talking about, I witnessed in the Superstitions, wasn't weird in the moment. There was nothing weird about it. And then in hindsight, I thought, man, that was really strange. And the photograph or whatever, that misty figure, I didn't even know that was there. To me, I don't know. It's Sal's stories. That was his giant 20-foot. Man, I heard all the crows, hundreds of them. But not all of them. But yeah, he was in the mountains by himself, and they came upon him and did some sort of dance or ritual, and he was hiding behind a rock, and they knew he was there. But yeah, it's a odd story. Now, I asked Sal if he'd take me out there sometime where that happened, and he said, oh yeah, no problem. So it's not like he's afraid of it. But yeah, Sal, that's a Salvador Dega deal. I think he told that on my channel, did a video of it when we were at the Arizona Film Festival, and he also did one with Terry Carter about it. Now, I don't know if they're all the same. It's the same story. I don't know if he told the same story twice, so there could be that. But I think under Terry's, it's the Black Nephilim, some other name I've already. Sal calls them the Black Legion. He calls them different things. But yeah, that was that. They had flames for eyes and all that. And Sal, who's some sort of strange, odd mix of voodoo and who knows what else, basically also in pagan customs and rituals. Yeah, Sal kind of like was doing the Lord's Prayer behind the rock and stuff. You have to have Sal almost tell it around a campfire to really appreciate it. But that was, yeah, they had fire coming out. He just stayed there huddled up the whole night and never to approach again. You want to go there, Sal? I'd like to see where that happened. Oh yeah, no problem. So who knows? Who knows? Sal believes it. He believes it happened. So I wonder if he'd go out there and stay the night. That would be the cool one. Let's just go out there and camp and see what happens. And Sal was referred to as a gentleman. I think it was Tom or his dad who saw fire. No, that was not. It was a woman told Tom or his dad. The crack in the fire was a woman saw it. Because Tom talked about it. He said it sounds like a tall tale, but he said it's feasibly, it could be possible. He said geologically, because he talked to some people about it. But no, that was, I'm pretty sure she told Tom. And that story comes out of the 60s or 70s, because Tom talked about it. So that was a first-hand story from Tom. And he searched for the spot and couldn't find it. But he talked about, and it was a woman, and she'd been out searching, and she told him in detail. And he told Randy and I where she said it was, but he couldn't find it. I don't think we even bothered to look. Because Tom said, you know, it could have been an occurrence, but he never found the crack. We went looking for another crack that his dad had found. That's a separate story. And that was one that went way down, but it had a bottom to the floor. And he thought it was an underground passage that some bubble had burst open and revealed an opening to drop down into it. And Randy and I went out and searched for that. And then I went out a few times by myself searching for it. And I wasn't sure. I never found anything that fit the description in the journals, but I found things that you could take and embellish to be like that. But I never found it, and that would be south of Weaver's Needle. And he believed it connected to some other caves or possibly underground lava tubes. Have you ever seen the marks on cactus from First Water to Parker's Pass? Yes. Sup, y'all? Tom mentions volcanic intrusions, most likely covered. I don't think volcanic intrusions, because the volcanoes haven't been active for probably 15 to 20 million years. In fact, that might be my next Chasing Legends, is talking about the periods of the geological activity in the mountains and explaining some of that, which won't be really Dutchman talk. It'll give everyone perspective of the range and realizing how truly old it is. Because remember, there was also a period it was swampland. So, and it was also a period of time it was underwater. It was a very shallow sea, all most of Arizona. So there was completely different eras. I mean, we're talking hundreds of millions of years. So the relevance of that and all, but the intrusions, you can see them going up through the Dayside Cliffs, which is very cool. It's a good, I'm surprised geologists don't use the Dayside Cliff area and the calderas as in the Superstitions as teaching tools, but I know of only one geologist that really did, and because it's so interesting, because it's so, it gives you a unique perspective to sit in the caldera and look at it, and even though we can't see originally what it all looked like, we can get an idea, and you can think about it, of these mountains pushing up and everything so hot that the magma is shooting up through them, and then it cools, you know, and it's just, you're thinking, how hot was it? You know, it had to be the most toxic wasteland in the world during that time. And I've thought about that. And I got, actually on this pad of paper here, I got a lot of notes about it, because I thought it would be interesting to do a little bit of talk about that. Now, there was a book I had that covered part of the superstitions, because there's no book on the superstitions and the caldera activities, and no papers I can find, but there was a book that had a good section on it, and I wanted to incorporate it with other known knowledge, because it's real scattered. Everybody has a scattered different opinion 10 million, 20 million years ago, and this book was pretty good, and I can't find the book. I know it's in there. It's just, unfortunately, I have thousands and thousands of books, and it made its way off the Dutchman shelf, because I was trying to get more room for Dutchman books and move some general stuff off. And I really need to reorganize my library, because things are a bit of a mess. I don't know where certain things are. And it was a very old book from the 60s or 70s on the geology of the Superstition Mountains. So there you go. Man, a lot of crows. All right, it's getting darker. It's getting harder. The edge of the caldera is the best gold. Well, there's 3 calderas there, and they overlap a bit. But yes, which I don't think geologists have ever truly studied to measure when the calderas are anything super sharp. Now, there was a geologist who spoke with the Dons of Arizona who did an excellent program. I thought it was one of the best programs, guest speakers we've ever had for the Dons. And he did such a great job explaining. Now, I know it's my area of interest, but giving you an insight. And he wasn't a gold prospector type, but he told you why there was trouble with the gold and the ignorance of saying there's no gold in the Western superstitions. And he fully explained everything. And it was really a cool talk. And I tried to get him for the rendezvous this year. Hopefully next year. His back was out. He was unable to attend. But hopefully next year I can get him to come out and talk, because he's very knowledgeable, and he does a really nice program that gives you really good insight on the modern day of what we're looking at. He points out the geological studies were never completed on the mountains. Most of them, they were in process of doing things, and then they never finished them. And if you ever look at them, you'll find they went to known sites that had been mined past tense, and that gold had been produced, and then they went in and just assayed those. Well, of course, if you go in to a place that's been mined out and you assay it, what's it going to assay at? And he's pointed out a lot of problems with that at the time, but they never really went depth in it, because I think it became the wilderness area. They decided it just didn't really matter, because no one was going to go in there and rip it up, and you couldn't file claims anymore, so it just died in popularity to finish those things. So there was some in the 50s and 60s, and those reports, and they're very difficult if you don't have any geological knowledge. And I'm not saying, oh, I know gold and I know sedimentary rock and tertiary rock. And if you don't really have a geological sense, they're hard to read. I have a bunch of the stuff from up in Fish Creek and stuff, which again, I asked him, I said, Fish Creek is weird to me because one side, Horse Mesa, is almost physically completely different than the south side of Fish Creek. And I said, I find that just, we were sampling and the samples were so diverse and different. And he was talking about the calderas and the effects and different things. And so I found it fascinating. So hopefully next year we'll have him at the rendezvous and do a really nice talk on all this stuff, because really nice guy, really well spoken. He knew Tom. Tom and him were friends. And kind of the job of talking about the history of the reports and currently and basis of why it's so different than other unique places. If you're a prospector and has a knowledge of geology, why the Superstitions takes most of that and throws it away, because it's so uniquely different because of the calderas and what's happened in those mountains. But yes, excellent talks he gave. Those crows are bringing them in. Nobody's talking. They're not talking. They're all standing there. I think they're listening. I think they came in to join me on this. Your philosophy on the Dutchman reminds me of Tom Case. Treasures the mountains. Yeah, I mean, we all have an attachment to the mountains. I don't know. I guess they didn't care for that. And they decided to start dispersing. But, yeah, I think, I've always tried to, you don't say levels of Dutch hunters. This isn't the Masons or the Skull and Bones, or there's levels of the club and stuff, which people get the wrong perception of. But I think there are people that you say Dutch hunters, and then you say Dutch hunters. And then, there's an old school, but there's also kind of, Jesse and I think one night sitting around, and Thomas Glover was there, and we're talking, and I like to tell this story. Thomas asked the question, if there was no Lost Dutchman mine, none of this history, you weren't introduced to it by your fathers or this or that, do you think you would have found your way? Would this place still be special to you? And Jesse and I were immediately like, yeah. And we don't know what it is, but there is something there. And you don't want to be like spiritual or anything else about it. That ruins it. There's just something about, yes, don't know what it is. Don't care what it is. The mountains don't care. I don't care. I don't worship the mountains. I don't think the mountains have feelings. I don't think the mountains notice me very much, but I think there's something about it. So I'm trying to keep up with these, because the problem is they zip through, they disappear, I don't ever see them again. Love ya, big dog. Okay. You make our city proud. Okay, well, there we go. Sir, have you heard of werewolves or dogmen in the Superstitions? Ripping heads off. I was attacked in 2017 on a derby. No. Never ran into any feral dogs that I know of. I know there was a guy talked about something out there. He thought he saw a Mexican wolf. I doubted it, because at that time hadn't even introduced them into northern Arizona. The last jaguar was what, in the early 1900s. Never seen a dog man, and nothing like that, or werewolves out there. Sal will tell you they're probably out there. But, one of my reasons, and I'm not a skeptic, I am just a realist of all the time I spent out there and all that. And if there's nothing, there's nothing. And I was certainly easy pickings and bait many times, so no. And there's so many others that have spent so much time out there alone and different things. Most of the time, the thing you had to worry the most about, if not mountain lions, would be two-legged people with guns. And Tom has several stories about that. And that was your biggest fear. They weren't dogmen, they were people. And people are weird, and people can get weird over things. And other than that, I've never heard the werewolf dogman stuff. That's kind of a more recent thing. I'd never heard of the reptilian thing. It's our second most popular video when I talked about that Sherry Hinkle's thing, and Cherry Hinkle. And the weird part about it is I'd never heard that story before. And then I started hearing more about it. So they're almost like modern day kind of things. I've never heard of a chupacabra out there. No one's ever talked about you. Like I said, I've never even really ran into feral dogs out there. Now, Piestewa Peak and several other areas, the White Tanks, have run into some feral dogs that are out there for a little while that get loose from ranches or people turn them loose. I ran into a couple of pit bulls out on the north end of the White Tanks. It took me forever. I got one in. Second one took me forever. That's someone just abandoned in the desert. So you'll run into those, but they're usually more skittish and fearful than aggressive. So there's that. We're almost done. Oh, we should be done. Damn, I'm just flying off. Okay, people have been losing their heads there for 100 years. Wayne, whatever became of the area where you found the coins, it's still there. Nothing else has happened to it. Number of people went out. I shared it and made sure people knew exactly, and there are a few people know exactly where I was at. And no one's come up with anything else. I've always suggested look at where they carved the road, and so made suggestions of where to start looking in other areas. But I have to take Frank out there. He has a metal detector he got that's specially equipped that goes pretty deep, and we'd have to go out there and search some areas that we know are pretty barren to see if anything's deeper. But I don't know if the park would be very open to us digging on it. But it's the area there is still there. Yeah, it was just a pile. It was where the bulldozers making the road had pushed dirt aside by a tree. And I just happened to be at the base of that tree. Sun was out, it was warm, and I went under the tree and was just kicking around. And I thought I found a quarter. And Trevor was probably 10, 15 feet from me. Frank was probably about 30 or 40 yards from me. And I called Trevor over to film it because I thought it'd be funny to say, hey, look, I found this quarter. And then I realized I had a silver dollar in my hand, and I was like, holy shit. And then I started digging and yelled at Frank to get the pinpointer because I was excited. And Frank, because I didn't want the metal detector, we knew there was metal there, I wanted the pinpointer to dig around in that area because it was all soft dirt where they were. And then Frank came over, and then when Frank saw and kind of guessed what happened, he's thinking I'm crazy and we need gloves because I got my bare hands in there. So I'm gonna have to finish up here. Like I said before, always carry a compass and a 45 when I'm on miles. There you go. It's not a bad idea. Should always carry something. You can carry a 38. You can carry a 30-30. Carry something. And there's always other animals. You know, you never know when there's a feral or a rabid coyote, even a skunk. Skunk could be. You know, you don't want bit by a rabid skunk. You don't want to deal with that either. So we're gonna wrap it up, because it's way over. Man, I jumped way over. We must have been having a good time. So I'm going to finish it up. I'm glad everybody joined us. I don't know how to close this out. I'm looking at it going, shit, how do I do this? I guess I just close it and it closes. Anyways, hopefully it saves there. But I hope everybody had a good time. We keep doing these. Sorry about whatever happened with the interior, but I think the outside ones are always fun. I kind of enjoy them. I just wish I was more comfortable than leaning on the hood of a truck doing them. Fortunately, my glass for my drink holds my phone up. And yeah, you know, hillbilly technology, right? Except when I have to take a drink. But thanks everybody, man, for coming in. Remember Jason Fritsch tomorrow, Saturday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Superstition Mountain Museum with Ron McCoy and Carolyn Kearney. And then again, I'll be bringing up that book by Mark Medley, Live to See the Day, which you can just look that up and you'll see it's being released in January 6, 2026, which hopefully it's a good read. I'm going to push it. I'm going to get a copy because I want to see what he wrote. And I don't even remember what I said. So there you go. So thank you, everybody. Everybody have a great weekend. Catch Chasing Legends on Monday. I thought Trevor would be in by now, but there's no sign of Trevor still. So I guess we won't be seeing Trevor this week, but we will catch him behind the camera for Monday. So until then, everybody have a great time as I try to puzzle and figure this out. It hasn't been that long I've done this. I guess I just hit the X and I say goodnight, and we get going. It is almost good night because the sun's going down. So if I missed you or missed your question, I apologize. It's just been hard. Again, I'm going to have to remember, if I wear a white shirt, I can't really see the text very well. It blurs into the shirt. This was the wrong shirt. Camo, tie-dye or camo, whatever. It blends in. So that being said and done, everyone go off. Peace be with you. Have happy holidays. We will catch you again next Friday. Catch Chasing Legends on Monday, and perhaps maybe catch me. I might be swinging by the museum tomorrow, so you might catch me out and about there briefly, and I'll be more than happy to say hello and hi and have a cigarette and tell a story. So there you go. Have a great night. I will catch you later as soon as I figure out how to get rid of this screen. Everyone have a good night.